I too want to thank the Tsleil-Waututh Nation and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs for hosting this event and for inviting us to share our perspectives on what the Burnaby Mountain experience was like for us. What happened on Burnaby Mountain was a life-changing experience for many of us. When I first heard 3.5 years ago that Kinder Morgan was planning to build a new pipeline, it was a rallying call for many of us who feel so deeply that our planet is in peril. And I went to the first town hall that was held in Burnaby. It was in June of 2012 at a church. And there was a panel which included Carleen Thomas from Tsleil-Waututh, and there were reps from Kinder Morgan and from Chevron, and Mayor Corrigan and Kennedy Stewart were all on the panel. And that evening kind of set in motion some important things. One was that some of my neighbors and I got inspired to get together and form Broke. And the other, so we've basically been working for, since that time to try and raise as much awareness as we can about the risks that this pipeline poses to our communities and to the air, water, and land that we all share and that we depend on for our survival. And I think that basically 3.5 years ago, at that time, I had lived in Burnaby for 27 years, and I was not aware of the fact that the Tsleil-Waututh Nation lived directly across the water from me in North Vancouver, which seems really incredible to me right now, but it just highlights for me that one of the really important things that this struggle has accomplished, like others have said, is that it has brought together such a diverse network of people and organizations because we all are united in a common cause. And that is, in a microcosm, that is to stop the Kinder Morgan pipeline, but it's much bigger than that. We're all united in fighting for, social and environmental justice. And so I really, as much as I am not a fan of Kinder Morgan, I mean, that's a great, but I am grateful in a way that this has brought us together. And I know that we're going to stop this pipeline, and I trust that our friendships and our relationships will continue long after we win this fight. So what happened on Burnaby Mountain a year ago would not have happened without the leadership and the warrior energy of the frontline land defenders who are known as caretakers. And I also believe that it would not have happened without the behind-the-scenes support and the organizational work that was happening on the part of many different groups. There was a lot of groups that stepped up to organize civil disobedience workshops and legal rights workshops, and during the protest itself, there was a lot of work that was going into supporting people who were getting arrested. This is interesting.
Oh no.
Here. Starting on November 20th, when the injunctions were being enforced, the arrests were going on day after day for 8 days, with a total of about 125 people being arrested. The protests quickly gained momentum, taking on a life of their own, with busloads of people arriving day after day from various places, and hundreds of people on the mountain at any given time. It was a really exhilarating time and a really exhausting time. And from one day to the next, we didn't know if the organizational energy would be there to support the waves of people that just kept arriving. But day after day, new organizers did step up to support those that needed to step down. And it was messy, but we held it together. And it was a massive display of community spirit, of people coming together to say no to big oil, who, with help from the RCMP, were ramming themselves through our wall of resistance against the will of all of our First Nations and all of the rest of us. I can still hear the echoes of the crowd chanting, "The people united will never be defeated." On the final day of the protest on Thursday, November 27th, Indigenous leaders, including Amy George and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, were arrested alongside people from various faith communities. It had been pouring rain for days, and anybody who was up there will remember that the mountain was just a complete mud pool. It was really, really cold and wet and messy up there. I remember some members of the Walmsley chorale showed up that day to show their support, and I just remember being down at Borehole 1 and hearing the sounds of their singing kind of wafting down through the woods to where the arrests were happening, and just feeling the support of such a diverse group of people. When I arrived on the mountain the next morning, on Friday, November 28th, there was this spirit of jubilation in the air, and I just remember quickly, well, you could see the helicopters like carrying the drilling equipment off, and quickly learned that Kinder Morgan had been denied their application to extend their deadline of December 1st, and so they were leaving the mountain, and also learned that the charges had been dropped against all of the 125 people who had been arrested. And it was a really happy day, and I don't think any of us were under the illusion that the war had been won, but we did succeed in delaying them to the point where they did not get all of the drilling done that they wanted to do. And our lawyers who were in court fighting against the $5 million slap suit did manage to expose some of their incompetence, and which I think resulted in the charges being dropped. And I also think we put Kinder Morgan and other corporations on notice that they're not going to be able to do these types of things without a huge fight from the community. So diversity of tactics was a source of much debate and controversy on the mountain. And one thing I did appreciate was that virtually everybody who was involved in the protest was committed to nonviolent tactics. That's something that was really important to me. And from my perspective, the diversity of tactics was not a problem. What created the most difficulty was the intolerance of some toward the actions or the inactions of others. This contributed to the stress of what was already a very stressful situation. We currently have many fights on our hands. We're supporting frontline land defenders at Unistoten, Maddie Lee, and Tsleil-Waututh Island, and right here in the Lower Mainland. In addition to Kinder Morgan, we have corporations trying to ram through LNG and coal projects every time we turn around. I think Burnaby Mountain exposed a lot of people to civil disobedience, and a lot of people received training in that. And I think when the time comes, my hope is that we'll be better prepared. I still think we have a lot of work to do to build that solidarity, but I think that we did build a lot of networks, and that we will hopefully be better ready to meet those challenges as they arise. I'd just like to end with the question of what reconciliation means to me in the context of Burnaby Mountain. I think it means having more tolerance for diversity of tactics. I think it means honoring each person or group's contribution to this struggle. It means being willing to set aside differences for the sake of our common cause, and making an effort to mend bridges and build trust whenever and and wherever that's possible. Reconciliation, in the words of TRC Commissioner Chief Wilton Littlechild, asks all involved to, quote, open your mind and be willing to learn and to link arms with Indigenous peoples as we work together to heal and secure a better future. Thanks.